All right, Brian, you got a story for us.
A little bit of one. Basically, got an invitation to take a sailboat to help. I should say, as a crew member on a sailboat originally it was from the Panama Canal all the way out to basically the Gambier Islands in French Polynesia.
Yeah.
But seeing as I'm a dad, husband, and have a job or work, that only a short section is what I was able to do. So I went from San Cristobal, part of the Galapagos Islands. I'm not sure how many islands there are, but it's a smaller one basically off to the east. Small island. They do a lot of like the breeding of the tortoises and everything like that. So, and then they had a volcano, went and checked out and all this stuff. But yeah, it's part of Ecuador. So I flew to Ecuador, and from Ecuador over to Galapagos, and then we sailed about 2,000 miles, roughly 16 and a half, 17 days took us to get from one point to Easter Island. So the place of the big heads and all that.
Was this your first big sail?
Yeah, so definitely the first. I think my longest up to date has only been a 48-hour sail in the Caribbean on a monohull. This was, like I said, a lot longer, blue water sailing in the Pacific. So a lot more open water versus in the Gulf and the Gulf and the Caribbean. You have a lot more placid water because there's so much protection from the outer islands that they break up the big swells. But out in the middle of the Pacific, you just have these monster walls of water that are just lift the boat up and lay it back down and lift the boat up. So big difference.
So knowing you were going to the Pacific, because you obviously don't know the geography, was that intimidating knowing that your first long sail was in this Pacific? Would you have wanted it in the Caribbean?
No, I mean, there's really you can't get that kind of distance in the Caribbean. You have the puddle jump from Europe to North America. A lot of people do in the Atlantic, and then you have the Pacific. Those are the big ones. The big, real long, the true blue water, open water passages. And the Pacific Ocean actually has a pretty a mellow reputation in the as far as the latitudes that we were going to be in. You start getting into the lower latitudes, things get a little crazy. The upper latitudes, things get a little crazy. But those were where all the big swells come from. So like in the winter, we have the big swells on the Hawaiian chain. Those are all coming from massive storms up in the upper latitudes. Okay. So it's vice versa in the southern latitudes. But you get down there, it gets crazy. But where we were at is pretty mellow.
So you started about the equator, right?
Yep, right at zero. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you started at zero, and then the Easter Islands is how far south?
About 2,000 miles south. I want to say it's at like the 24th degree south.
Oh, so that's a lot narrower.
Roughly middle of Texas. So as far as if you were to go laterally north, so it's kind of interesting to look at it that way. So Galapagos, extremely hot and sweaty because of being zero. And then when you got down to the Easter Island, it was nice to put a long sleeve shirt on at night and things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take me back to the prep. So what prep went into this? Being a crew hand, not your boat, you didn't have to get it ready. You just met them there. Any prep that you did before you met them at Galapagos Islands?
Yes.
Not work, Spanish. What'd you do?
I listened to a lot of Spanish on the plane ride, and none of it stuck.
Dang it.
I had to. I had to molest this poor Spanish man's ears on the while we drove. I just gave him everything in my book at that point. It was butchering his language, but a little bit of that. I tried my darndest to actually prepare, but it was weird because of the state of mind that I was in at that point. With just trying to take all the balls that were in the air and make them all happen, along with my own, this is post-Christmas and post-New Year's. Everything was just chaos during the holiday season. And then I've got my small business. I've got work I got to lay out that get his and the wife. My executive faculty was basically adrenal fatigue. I was just done. I couldn't make decisions. Yeah.
Leaving.
And that was really a really bad place to be when, prepping to go across a 2,000-mile sailing trip. But so the prep was tough. I had a bunch of stuff, and I had a whole suitcase with a bunch of gear that they needed for their boat. So I was bringing a lot of that to them, and they were all totally fine with feeding me the whole way and stuff like that. So I tried to prep, but everything was so it seemed like literally right out of the plane. I got to the boat, dropped everything off, and they're like, all right, if you want to go see the island, we only have today because we're taking off our windows tomorrow. So,
for weather purposes.
For weather, yeah, because you got to watch. That's all pretty important stuff with the whole sailing. So yeah, they shipped me off, and again, that's where I went off with some random Hispanic fella that was just awesome, Ecuadorian, I should say. Galapagos is part of Ecuador, but yeah, and he was awesome, super swell guy. Neither one of us, spoke the same language, so it was just picking out things, gato, cat, el perro. But yeah, he showed me the island, and it's only really one road across the entire island. It's only like 28 miles long or something like that. Oh. And so we went up and hit a volcano, and then after that down to Puerto Chino. Is a beautiful island on the very other end, just white sandy beach. And it's neat because you have along the way, I saw all the big tortoises. We pulled off in a little park there where they do the breeding. So I saw the iconic tortoises, and then get to this little beach, and seals are everywhere. They're kind of more like the chickens you have in Hawaii, except the seals, they're pooping everywhere. They're just in everybody's business. But the beach was littered with these, and the blue-footed boobies, and the Galapagos iguanas, the black iguanas you see. So, and I just sat there for like 2 hours, kind of like, okay, decompress a little bit. Breathe, this is about to take place. And so then I went back, and that's when that evening we were like, all right, tomorrow we're going in to get all of our stuff, preparation. So it's very humbling going into a country where you don't speak the language. In America, we're just like, our confidence, we can speak to everybody, we're super confident. The minute I got onto I think it was a Latin commercial pilot or commercial airline, and I'm just like, please take pity on me.
I am from America.
I'm just as wide as it gets, so please. So that was an added pressure, but it was nice to feel humbled a little bit and just
was it?
It was kind of nice to hope for a little bit of grace by other people, and it was then given. So that was kind of nice. Yeah, that was nice. But yeah, so then we're like, all right, let's prep. Well, I don't know what to eat or what to buy. I mean, it's like if I told you right now, okay, get food at this while we're in the grocery store, get food for 20, 21 or 20 days. Because you may be out there longer.
For 9 people, right?
For 9 people.
You're talking 9 people, 20 days.
Well, 10. I mean, one's 6 months old, so she, the mother takes care of that food there. But plan for that. Even for yourself, if I had that to do that for you at the grocery store, now's the time to do it. What do you do?
What do you pack?
What do you pack? So, luckily I was able to lean into them. Plus the fact that the minute we took the dinghy into get food, I realized my wallet was back on the boat once we got to the open air market. So I was pretty. It was really weird for me to be the kind of just like the green hand.
Greenie.
Yeah, it was really, again, kind of a humbling experience. It was really weird for me to just be out of my element entirely.
Because you are very handy, very comfortable in many scenarios, because I've known you a long time. But very humbling. That's interesting.
It was tough.
Very interesting.
It threw me. Everything was throwing me off, and that being thrown off by everything caused me to have a lot of self-reflection. Man, am I just aging? Am I old now, or what's going on here? So that was tough.
Did you have to rely on certain habits or old familiar things to you to get through that day before you got on the boat? Okay, you do the shopping. I know nothing about packing for 10 people. So did you have an assignment right before you guys left?
Yeah. I mean, once we got back on the boat, so for that period right there, I have a really bad problem with narrating my situation and kind of exaggerating how bad they really are. I think that's kind of human nature.
Yes.
So I'm just just breathe through it. I can trust. They've been doing this for a long time. This family is awesome. They literally bought the boat in France and never really sailed a big boat and sailed it across the Atlantic the next day, basically. I mean, The mother's just on the ball. She's awesome. She's very adaptable. And that elasticity that I've always been known to have seemed like I was as rigid as I'll get up. I was so static. And so I felt breakable, which is, again, a scary thing for me to feel. I don't feel breakable. I'm Brian. No. But so that was pretty tough for me. But then once we got back to the boat and stuff, we're like, all right, well, we're leaving basically tonight. So we started, and but to go back to like the open air market, at this point in time, I hadn't eaten anything. I was like kind of a 2-day fast to kind of get my body prepped because I do get seasick. So I'm like,
you?
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I get seasick.
Okay,
So, but my seasick
we'll
usually lasts only about a couple of days. But
okay.
so I'm super clean eating. I didn't eat anything in the airport with the exception of drinking water. I'm doing this whole cleanse thing. I'm going to eat clean. And then, I forget my wallet to buy my clean food. So I'm at the mercy of whatever they eat. So that's fine again. And then, but they have these amazing empanadas. They're just basically cheese and bread, but super tasty, and just oil's dripping off of them. And so we get back to the boat, and we start cleaning the bottom of the boat because in the Galapagos the water is so nutrient dense that stuff just grows. It's just all over the boat.
How long had the boat been packed there?
It had been sitting there for about 3 weeks, so there's a lot of growth on it. So we scrubbed it all. Yeah, scrubbed it all down. And a lot of times Galapagos too, in coming into the country, because the Galapagos is such a protected environment, they want the boat clean of anything that was being brought over.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Like the mussels here and things. Okay.
Exactly. So we cleaned it, and then I made the mistake of like one of the kids, I'd been scrubbing. I was pretty hungry at that point. He's like, "You want an empanada?" I'm like, "They smell good. Okay, I'll eat it." So I eat the empanada, like half of it too. I go down and start scrubbing just in like the boat because I'd suction cup the side of the hull while I scrub, and just that lifting and dropping and lifting. I'm just like, I fed the fishes like immediately. This is done for. Just like, oh my.
Were they laughing at you being the greenie?
I just was on the other hull, I was just hiding,
hiding in shame.
My shame, exactly. But yeah, so I fed the seals were all over us too, so I'm sure they loved it. Seals are just, the water's so clear in the Galapagos and most places, like that, and on those islands, just beautifully clear, 35 feet to the bottom, and it looks like it's 5 feet. Beautiful. The seals, like I said, the sea lions are just all over the place. As I'm cleaning the boat, we have these the eagle rays that are kind of floating back and forth. I think it's their mating season and stuff. Those eagle rays are really pretty.
Those really large spotted eagle rays. Those are stunning. We just saw those. Yep.
Yeah, cool. I mean, this is literally like what it's something out of a National Geographic the entire time. And
like being in this environment, do you even care that you were throwing up in the ocean, having seals
if you had to choose a place to throw up?
Right, like if you're gonna vomit, were you okay that it was here? Or oh man.
Yeah, I mean, it was there was tons of sea turtle everywhere too. And it was really interesting too on the volcanic islands like that. It's just that black stone everywhere up against that crystal clear water. And it's back with the sea lions. There's quite a few. Like they had a habit of getting on the boats too. So every time we'd come back, if the whole family was on the island, then we'd come back and we'd have to shoo sea lions off the boat every time. And they always just defecated everywhere, and it's the most rancid smell. Sea
lions are a large animal. Oh, yeah. That's a large pile of feces.
You got it.
On your brand new boat.
A nice boat.
So what do you do to keep them off?
Mostly,
I put a firecracker, like those poppets.
Oh, you just take a broom, you smack them off. Like I said, they're kind of just
just like a big chicken,
a big dog you're trying to get away, or a big chicken. You just keep out. They're pooping everywhere, and it's funny. I was actually I had to square off with one at one point in time because I, thought I was big and tough until I slapped one to get him out of the gangway of the catwalk to get down to the water taxis, and it was not having that. So I just prayed to God it wouldn't chase me around this big old barrier or like one of those pylons that they have holding the dock up. So I just hid. We just kind of played the cat and mouse game. And then he finally got off, and that way everybody else could come down the gangway. But
so you didn't check if it was male or female first?
The size was definitely a guy. It was a big old.
That's your first mistake, right?
I'm just like, I've got this chip on my shoulder. Again, this whole trip was just like one humbling experience after the other. It was just crazy. So, but we just basically at that point in time, that's pretty much everything we did over there on Galapagos. It was a short trip, but we set sail that evening. So
you did leave. Yeah. You did raise anchor, huh?
Yeah. Okay. We pulled anchor and got the heck out of Dodge, roughly around like 9-10 o'clock at night. It was dark at that point, but I mean, doesn't matter whether it's light or dark. It's all just big old open water.
Doesn't matter.
So
tell me those first thoughts leaving, knowing you're not going to see land for 17, 18 days. Like anything cross your mind right then?
Just a lot of, again, the expectations of this is something I've always wanted to do, doing a big blue water, because this is like maybe this could be what I feel the most natural doing. I've romanticized it for years and sailed around in the child's playground in the Caribbean, and man, this is going to be it. So I'm the anticipation is exciting, but like I'm just kind of allowing to, I want the experience to be as organic as possible. But there was just like, okay, this is it. This is awesome. Let's do this. Knowing full well that I get seasick. But I knew that will pass because I've been there before. My wife and I, whenever we go even scuba diving, if the water's rough, we're always known as the spew crew. If I don't eat, I'm good. But the minute I eat something, it's going to come right back out of me.
Are you okay in the hole? In the hole.
As far as so down in like the galley and things like that in the saloon. It's just once your eyes leave the horizon, it's it's.
Is that what it is?
A lot of times, yeah. If you stay up high, you can usually keep it, keep yourself from spewing. But the nerves, though, I mean, you have to expose yourself to it, and the more times you like poke a nerve, it will accommodate. I think is what it's called, a nerve accommodation, and you'll stop feeling that sensation. They've actually done studies, I think, with the seasickness is actually genetic. Some people that don't get it, it's genetic. It's a genetic code. So the people that do, like myself, a lot of times you expose the nerves to that uneasiness, not seeing the horizon move, the inner ear, the gut, everything starts to kind of figure it out by day 3. And then it's usually gone. You can go anywhere you want.
Was yours hopefully sooner than day 3? Or did it take 3 days?
You're still kind of that lethargic. And I think I went ahead and ate. I think it was even the second day I ate, and then it just immediately it was over there. But it wasn't too bad. Like I was able to, because our night watches went. So every night, no matter what, I slept down in the aft berth, which is the back end, and this is a catamaran, so you have 2 hulls.
Yeah, tell me real quick about the boat. Give me the layout of the boat.
Yeah, so most mono hulls have a aft or a fore cabin or a V berth and an aft cabin, and then the saloon and the galley in the middle where other bunks and berths can be. But this one had, with it being a catamaran, had a aft in the back, 2 afts and then 2 V berths. And then both of those had a head, so both you had a bathroom. So it was a 4 bathroom, 4 bed, and then you had on top of that, where the cabin was at, you had the saloon, the galley, where everybody could sit and stuff. And then this one was really cool because it had what they call a sky bridge. So it actually had the helm, instead of being at the aft of the cabin, it was actually up on top of the boat. So 3-decker basically.
Levels.
Yeah, there's a lot of space.
Give Manny the name.
46. It's a Nautica 46.
Manny, Google Nautica 46 just so we can see it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Manny. Thanks.
But more than enough space, especially for a family of 9 plus a crew member at 10. There was, and then I had my bedroom to myself. There you go. I mean, notice how not all of them have the sky bridge, but like that one that you have that on, that's a sky bridge. Like that's basically the boat. Yep.
That you were on.
That's the boat I was on.
So a lot of pictures I saw were from the Sky Bridge, and that's where you would man the helm, right?
Yeah. But I mean, with the boats these days, you don't even really use the helm. I mean, both hulls have its own 4-cylinder diesel. So if you need to turn it, you just throttle up on the port side, and it takes you to the right, starboard, or vice versa. But the helm you can see it kind of right there, right where those benches are at and the stuff. It's right in the front of that. But all the digital readouts are up there, as well as down in the cabin, in the captain's the chart desk. And you just I want to go 40 degrees to wind. I want to steer wind, or if I want to steer route, you can choose whether you want to be a certain degree off the wind, or you pick we were at 206 most of our trip, 206 degrees southwest.
Okay.
You could either go by that, but if the wind's no good at that, you have to then steer by the wind or steer by another direction. So everything is done with a couple pushes of buttons. Sailing these days is just nuts.
Totally different than all the books that I've ever read, right? Sailing around the world, it just I can't relate because it's so computerized now that it's
we like to romanticize about the most inopportune situations. For some reason we like to, but the world is so small with boats like this now because everything's done. And you have your satellites, even your cell phone, even though you don't have a signal. I kept track of where I was at in the middle of the Pacific Ocean the whole time. So as long as you have a charge and they can ping that, the world's really small with today's technologies. Yeah, really, really small. And something does go absolutely sideways, you got a raft out there that's packed in a package you toss out, and boom, it's a big raft, and it has a blinker going off with lights and saying where you're at, and you're picked up within 24 hours or so.
Wow.
So the fear isn't there as much, but things can still, obviously, but these boats, they're designed to even be upside down. So monohull will right itself. This boat will flip over, and then it'll float upside down for indefinitely.
Will it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty plush boat. Not all catamarans, but like this one is designed to do that. Yeah.
So could this pitch pole? Could this do a pitch pole?
I mean, anything could. Yeah. But a pitch pole would be pretty tough. I mean, that would be some gnarly
For a
seas.
catamaran.
But if you had like a big spinnaker out or something like that, it possibly could. Something that you're running downwind to actually pitch pole or turtle in. Yeah, but it could be pushed over. Yeah, I could. We had a couple days where we had a big Jenniker sail out, and the winds were hitting right at 18 knots, which is the max the Jenniker can take. And every big, like we had maybe 10-foot swells, we'd come up, and you could actually feel the boat lift off one hull a little bit. And this is a big boat. This is a very big
46,
boat.
yeah.
And a lot of surface, and you could just feel it. So yeah, I mean, it feasibly could, tip.
Take over.
Yeah, a knockdown is what they call them. But yeah, it'd be tough but as long as you're watching, like that's why it's so vital to have our night watches too, watching the winds and stuff like that. Again, nobody's watching, like everything's electronic. The computer's telling you everything you need to know. So you're watching the winds, the knots of what you're at, true wind versus apparent wind and things like that, and just knowing what your sails can do. We reefed a bunch because we had some knots. So the first few days were pretty mellow, but the swells were huge. A lot of the swells we were hitting, I don't know if anybody's seen the Marshall Islands, the U.S. Navy place or whatever in the Marshall Islands, and while I was crossing, these massive swells were going under us, just these humongous swells with a ton of energy.
Yes, it was on the news.
Yeah.
Yes, at the same time you were gone. Okay,
so those waves that we were going over that were just like these house-sized waves, we just lift and down. We're like, when those hit land, they're going to devastate. And sure enough, those exact waves were hitting the Marshall Islands a couple of days later.
Oh, man.
So that was kind of interesting to see what those actually were able to do when they hit land. Because, I mean, you have this massive amount of energy that's so deep in the water. And as it gets close to shore and that depth changes, that energy goes up and becomes this massive wave.
That momentum building. So what was peak to trough that you were riding on?
I'd say the highest was probably about that, like 15 to 20 feet from bottom to top. Like that would be the max. That'd be, yeah. I mean, and there were some days with white caps. Others were these beautiful sets where the period, which a period is between crest to crest, the periods would set out to like 12 seconds. So it'd take 12 seconds to get from the top of one down and back up the other. But it was the most beautiful thing surfing down the backsides of these waves because we were at about a 40 degree to the wind as our apparent wind. So, we're going this direction. So our waves are coming at 40 degrees because usually the waves will be being pushed by the wind. So the wind and the waves will come from the same direction.
Okay.
So we would kind of rock up on top and then drop down the other side, rock up on top. So it's not the most comfortable sailing. The most comfortable is probably running downwind. But a beam reach, which is 90 degrees to your sail or 90 degrees to the boat, is like the fastest point of sail.
90 is?
But it's not
to the
most,
mast?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
To the boat because the mast is, a pole.
Okay.
So the boat's going straight, perpendicular is your fastest point. Catamarans are good because they can run almost directly upwind. It's amazing. Catamarans are super good sailing boats. I love the monohulls, but man, catamarans are kind of where it's at for sure. Well, you got to think too, when you sit, the most time you're spending, unless you're doing these big crossings, the most time that you're going to be on your boat is at anchor. And at anchor, a monohull's just tipping back and forth, just with the waves that come in. A catamaran just kind of, it rides
levels
nice
itself.
And flat. Yeah. So even at this catamaran, like most boats have a gimbal on the ovens. Even the picture you can see there, it doesn't have a gimbal. So you see that oven and stovetop? Yeah, there's no gimbal. It doesn't rock with the boat, where a monohull has to be on a gimbal because it's in order to cook on, it's got to stay flat. Right. Catamarans are pretty much always flat. Especially, I mean, you have so much more room. So unless you're just like a diehard romantic and your budget, a catamaran you're not going to get for a decent price. You can go get a monohull that'll sail around the world for, 10 grand.
Yeah, so, cheap, but not these cats.
No, not these cats.
So, would you take one? Would you buy a cat?
I don't know. I have a fascination with the North Atlantic, and you need a monohull. You need something, something like even steel hulled. So if you do hit some iceberg or something like that, it's going to bounce off, things like that. In the lower seas too, if I were ever to go around the Horn, if I, had a death wish, if I really wanted to do that. But this opened my eyes a lot to whether or not sailing needs to be in my near future or not too. That was a little bit of a humbling too. Yeah.
You were talking about night watches, so you would do a 2-hour chunk.
Yeah.
When you ever had a night watch turn, did any point in time some 4-letter words start flying?
Yeah, yeah.
They did? Okay,
it
tell
wasn't,
me that.
because it's just how it was. Because during the day, you can see a weather front way off in the distance. You're like, okay, well, when we get there, there's a lot happening in that. You have wind being created from those. We have a lot of upswell, like the heat's rising in that area. It's bringing wind from almost every direction, and then you'll always get some kind of what's the word? Where it's fuzzy, just like you hear it in your static. You'll get some kind of weather static, I guess, for lack of a better term. So if you base what you're going to do off of that every time, sometimes you come up short. And so if you drop all that sail to get ready for a squall that's out there, you can see the weather system. And then it's always better to be preparing with taking sail down than putting sail up. Because, I mean...
Can't put it up.
Once it's up... Things break, exactly. But if you pull it down, you're not going anywhere. You're just you're super slow. So there's that fine line of like, okay, if I keep the sail up for just a little bit longer, and let's face it, with those situations, it was pretty easy to turn kind of basically about 150 degrees to the wind, almost perfectly downwind, and then that allows the pressure to be relieved off the sails, and you can drop sail. But it always is, it slows you down quite a bit. Yeah. So you want to be preemptive, but you got to look at all those things. And during the day, you can see those sails. At night, you don't see anything. It's all black out there. So you just got to watch, and you're like, oh man, we're hitting that 25, and at 25 was our first reef. When it hit 25 knots, we needed a reef once,
which
means to drop some sail, and then 28, and then 32. Those are our big reef next situations.
Are those like standards from the boat?
From the boat manufacturer?
Is that
yeah.
There or it wasn't recommendations like that you've learned over time? It's what the manufacturer said. Okay.
So every boat will have its own like guidelines, yeah, and it has in a folder or whatever. We had a notebook that we go, okay, well, what is our limits on this? Okay. And so we would watch those, and it would like lick 25. Okay, fine. I don't know, because it may just be one gust,
right?
It may, and then all of a sudden, next thing it goes up to 32. Oh crap, there's those 4-letter words start flying. But or it wouldn't do anything at all. It would just die off. Or we'd get ready for a bunch of wind. We'd be pumped about it. We'd pull up a Jenniker, and it was going to be just the perfect amount of wind. Jenniker can only get, like I said, 18 knots of wind. It doesn't have any battens in it. It doesn't have any ribs, so it can be destroyed pretty easily. So you want a light wind on it. But with that big, huge kite, it helps a ton for propulsion, or in this case, I think they call it lift or thrust. But so it's a lot of those. But for the most part, it was. Yeah, I mean, back and forth, trimming the sail, like tightening up the jib, tightening up the main, back and forth. And but what was really impressive is this guy, Chris, and his family, his boys did the night watches as well. And his two boys, a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, they were such good sailors. It was awesome.
Oh, that's young.
Yeah.
14 surprises me. Good for them.
So, they did such a good job. I was, like I said, definitely the greenhorn of the bunch for sure.
Was it like, did they show you like a night? Or
they
knew
not the first. That's why I forgot about that.
Okay.
The first time, I'm like, what am I gonna do?
Good night.
Here?
Don't let us die, Brian.
Right. I didn't even really know. Yeah, basically. Like I didn't know how. Like I know how to sail, but I don't know how their controls work and everything on their system with their computer system and stuff like that. And so I didn't know what buttons did what. So I'm just like. And then I had one point actually where I pushed the wrong. I swear the boat just decided it wanted to turn 180 degrees. Like I thought I knew that. I changed it out of a wind steer to a directional steer, and the problem with that is we were steering off of the wind in order to continue again moving forward. And I thought I remember him saying something about when it's like this, do that. So I did it, and so we went to direction where there was no wind whatsoever in the direction. So all of a sudden the sail starts luffing.
Your momentum just
yeah, exactly, the momentum, and then all of a sudden the sail. The canvas, since it doesn't have that wind at the correct angle, it's luffing all over the place, making a bunch of racket. And I'm just like, shh, shh, everybody's sleeping. It's 2:00 in the morning. Hush.
I'm not dumb. I'm just figuring things out.
Yeah.
So then you want to
immediately Chris is like, what's going on? Lorenzo, the 16-year-old boy, I like immediately went to go get him, but he was dead asleep. He was like completely passed out on the front, like on the tramp of the catamaran, because the wind, like it hadn't rained or anything. It was really beautiful, but we had some big seas, but he was sleeping on the tramp. So I'm like, Lorenzo, like, help me out here. And he was just like, he came up, but he was still totally asleep standing there. He's just like, what just dead,
really?
And then Chris, the dad, comes up and he said it all right. But yeah, that was a little bit of a learning curve. You feel dumb. You feel pretty like, yeah.
You were steering first night. And the 16-year-old was sleeping on the tramp with a greenie driving?
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's like, what could go wrong, right? Yeah, I don't
I
know.
love this family more and more. Good job,
like,
Lorenzo.
That's what that was such an amazing experience. This family doesn't say no, like it doesn't say can't. It's a really admirable thing. And it made me question because like by day 5, I think when the things were getting pretty rough, the water was getting pretty rough, and you're in the bottom of this hull down in the dark, and it's actually probably about day 3 because I was still a little bit seasick, which the nerves go a little haywire when you're seasick. It's like go get the flu and then put yourself out and getting sprayed by water and loud noises and like try to relax.
Yeah, learning new things, being responsible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was still a little bit, and then laying down in the berth down where I was at, in the back. It was just like when the waves were starting to hit, it was like this big boom. It was like trying to sleep inside of a bumper car, and it would just rattle and just jar everything, and you hear this crack, and you just for sure were going under. Like I got on a boat with a crazy man. Like the guy doesn't know how to say no. So like, am I in a bad situation? Yeah. You know, and because the mind is going crazy. I'm in a new environment that I've never been exposed to.
Do you play worst case scenarios
all
internally?
The time? Well,
internal dialogue?
Yeah. I mean, the body doesn't want to be in a bad situation. It doesn't play the best case scenarios. Because if that happens, great. But we don't want the bad case scenario to happen. So in my head, I'm like, well, okay. Well, first line of action is find the little babies because they got a 6-month-old. There you go, a 6-month-old all the way to the 16-year-old. You know, and but even the 3-year-old though, she swam like a fish. She was fearless. Like she was swinging off the riggings, off the line wire or the lifeline that goes around the outer perimeter, and it was just normal. That was their normal family dynamic. And so it was just an interesting thing to get used to is just be fearless. And again,
it's a good takeaway.
Yeah,
you can do it, and that's crazy.
You can, but I realize when like I said, when my mind is going racing and I'm feeling sick and everything, and the sound of the waves hitting the side and sloshing around is like making me sick to my stomach. The nerves just went crazy, and I'm like, man, I don't think that I'd want my kids as much as I thought I was going to want my kids out on the open ocean. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Really?
It's just added. It's so much more stress until you become familiar with it, maybe, and comfortable with it. But yeah, like again, it's just not something I've been exposed to on a regular basis. These guys, you know, the father and they've grown up. He grew up sailing a little bit and mostly surfing and stuff too, all over Hawaii. So the ocean's his home. I'm a desert rat at this point. Like it was scary, and to see these little kids just loving it and fearless, it was really admirable. But don't know if it's for me, like with the family thing. That's crazy.
It's fun to do different things so you can learn, right? You're not going to learn. All right. So did you have like daily tasks? How do you what's the day to day? What's the day to day is
consistent? Pretty much the same thing.
Same.
Day in, day out. It's like you look forward to there's like certain keyed hours I look forward to, you know. But the nights was always the same. Mine was 2 to 4. My watch was 2 to 4. And then I go to sleep for a couple hours, but I could never sleep past like 6:30. I'd get up and make myself a little bit of a breakfast before the entire crew was like up and running all, and then just having a ball. But yeah, so I get up there, and then it was weird. There was a little bit of, you looked forward to busy work sometimes because like it's the same thing. I mean, you can I've always like, I can't wait to sail because it's going to be like there's going to be no time, like there's no time crunch for anything. You just stay out there. Yeah. And to me, come to find out, I love routine. I love to have like some kind of a schedule. And I didn't have that. So it was a little bit unnerving, come to find out. Again, I've always been so free and like dynamic and elastic. And now I'm like craving some kind of a structure that just wasn't on the boat. It just wasn't. So it was like get up and eat breakfast and go read for a little while, do some push-ups, do some pull-ups. We had like that kind of a thing, sit-ups and whatnot, have lunch. I'd try to do a little bit of Spanish, listen to another book. And by the time it was like about 6 o'clock is when things started like, okay, well, and I did dishes anytime I had an opportunity because I felt totally useless. So I'm like, if I could at least do dishes. Yeah. I mean, even though I knew what I was doing a little bit, it was just still, I was so out of my element. But went out there and just did dishes anytime I could. And then by 6 o'clock we started getting ready to make dinner, making dinner by 7 o'clock. Everybody's eating by 9 o'clock, and then I was like out to go to sleep for 2. So that was kind of like, and usually, oh man, that was the other thing too, is Enoch, 7-year-old boy, he loved to play games, and so anytime I looked like I was not doing anything at all, want to play a game? You want to play a game? And he'd smoke me all the time in poker. Like a kid is like 7 years old, and I'm like, that's a frustrating
There's
thing.
nothing to bet on a boat, so
Well,
you
the
should have been
chips,
okay.
he ate the chips, but every game that we played, he just smoked me. I swear he's cheating somehow. But,
so he wants you back out there, huh?
Oh yeah, that was the thing too. Is the family was the kids and everything, they were pretty bummed because it's nice to have just a different dynamic. I mean, everybody acts a little bit different when there's a stranger on board, kind of a thing. Like parents may or may not be as structured or strict, and maybe the kids like that.
Right.
Maybe it's not good for them. Possibly, maybe they need that hard, demeanor. But yeah, so the kids are kind of bummed to have me go. All in all honesty, is like it's just parent different, parents, and then it's like you always have a hard time telling a child like don't do that when it's not your child kind of situation, and so there's a little bit of that, just because it's just a different. I was a toy a little bit to the youngest. I mean, 3-year-old, and
the guest and the toy on
exactly.
board.
So. Yeah, but that's why. So we went on, like I said, and really it is just kind of the same day in, day out. You have a couple of good days where there's like good solid wind. Then all of a sudden as we were about 3-4 days away from the island, it died entirely. No wind whatsoever. The water was flat. So it was like we had to do a little bit of power motoring where you'd have some sail up.
That's what I was going to ask
bit of motor.
You if you did have to use the motor in those
we tried,
days.
and Chris is a purist, so that's pretty cool. He's like, no, we're not moving if we're not sailing. We need the wind. Use the wind. Okay. And so there was a lot of days, even when it was crazy, we were moving fast, he'd still do it. We'd throw out a 50-foot rope off the backside, and the kids would just dive in and hope to get the rope. And before the boat took off and left them.
Between the holes, right?
Oh, no, off the back.
Okay, off the back.
So they would go up to the front and jump off the front of the boat, and the boat would go over the top of them, and they would try to grab onto the rope before they disappeared into obscurity. So again, this family is intense. So all of them, they're just hopping off the front end. But when it was really calm, the boat would be moving at maybe 2-3 knots, and we would see if we could swim all the way to the front of the 46-foot boat before we're tuckering out. Mm-hmm. There was one point like I almost got there, and I'm like, I took a big old swig of salt water, and then like me drowning flashed in front of me. I'm nah. Just gonna go ahead and call it quits before I pass out.
You didn't know if they'd save you.
He'll figure it out. That's Chris mentality.
Yeah.
When I was surfing, it was the same thing. I had this massive wave come in and just absolutely obliterate me. Kook slams like perfect. It would have been. Yeah, this wave came and just absolutely annihilated me. It was like the biggest wave you had all day too. And Chris was like, he might not come up,
but he'll figure it out.
He'll figure it out. So as I'm sitting there waiting for the foam to dissipate, because you can't swim through foam, nor can you breathe in it, I'm just like, I might die. I hope Chris can find my body at least.
Was your leash still tied?
No, the leash got ripped off of me. He saw my board just tombstoning. Like, have you seen that before, where the board just kind of sits up on end and it just kind of wobbles? You're not there. Yeah. So he'll figure it out, and
They have all that gear on the catamaran.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
The surfboards and all that's tucked up there. Okay.
Surfboards, I think they like their toys, and that was really cool. They had like foil board. They had with the foil board, they had a big wing that they could like hold on to, and not a kite. It was actually just a wing they would hold on to, and the wing would propel them using the wind off the island or whatever on the foil board, and they would just scoot seemed like 30-40 mile an hour, just blazing across the water with the foil, so the waves weren't like moving them at all. They just they had that, and then we had the scuba gear, so all the scuba gear we needed, as well as a compressor. So now the compressor wire or the compressor hose went bad on us while we were there, so we had to search for that while we were on Easter Island. But we had all the scuba gear, the surfing gear. Yeah, it was a again, look at the size of that. We saw the size of that boat. It was huge. So there's like a lot of space, a lot of. Yeah.
I have logistic questions. How do you do water for that many people that length of time? Drinking water.
Again, this boat was amazing. Water maker. So this one, they had a water maker. Yeah, it had a water maker. So the water maker, I believe it was like, it made like 100 gallons a day or something like that. It could do really, really well. But you got to be adamant about turning it off certain times and when nobody's on board, because it can make too much water and doesn't have a fail-safe or something, and has flooded them in the past. But off the back starboard side, there's a little shower setup too, so you rinse off. But what we do is after we plunge ourselves in the seawater, you get out and scrub up, and then jump back in the seawater real quick, and then come back out, and then spray yourself off, because the water that comes out is basically like super, super soft, and so you'd spend up all the water trying to get the suds off, that slimy feel. So that was kind of our daily shower was like that, and so we could use as much water as we want, and then drinking water and everything too. So
that's good.
A lot of those questions that you'd like, or how are we going to do this? It's all taken care of with these newer boats.
Nice boats. Makes you want money.
A little bit.
Were you solar, battery, propane?
So there's some things were power with there's a lot of what we call energy. It's like what's the energy level at, and so you'd look at via the solar panels off the backside, off the sky bridge. There was a few solar panels across there that did really good. We had a lot of sun. No wind generators like the old school boats, but and then a generator. If we didn't get enough energy by the sun, we would just flip on the generator for a little bit at night. But then it has batteries basically for energy storage. And then for some things are like heating food and things like that, you'd use propane. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So give me some favorite, any wildlife while you're out there.
Yeah. So on the way, we were a day. We were about 2 days. We were 2 days away. The night of our 2 days, about 9:30, the line goes, bzzz, starts taking off. So we're like a fish on this whole entire time for like almost 2,000 miles. We haven't had anything.
Really?
Now,
no way. Why is that?
It's in the middle of nowhere. There's just nothing out there. Even so, when we got to Easter Island, the water was like 100 plus feet of visibility because there's no plankton. There's no life in the water. So all you see is just sea urchins everywhere and a little bit of coral here and there, some small, like we saw some blacktip reef sharks and stuff, but really not a lot of life. And there's a point where we were, how deep was it? It was like 2 miles deep. The water was it just went forever out there. Wow. Super deep water. So there's not a lot of life in that corridor, which is why the whalers didn't go over there a whole lot. But yeah, not a lot of life. But yeah, that day we pulled in about a 70 to 80 pound big eye tuna. So that was pretty cool. It didn't take us very long. We had it in about 40 minutes. We were able to pull it in, and it was so late. We're too lazy to kill it and butcher it right there. So we ended up putting it back. The next day we're like, why did we do that? We could have had fish forever. So yeah, we threw it back. It was a beautiful fish, but it was really neat to actually have that happen.
Who would have cleaned it? Do you know how to clean?
Yeah, we would have flayed it. It's easy enough. Yeah, all of it. Yeah, they're big about that too. So you can just eat it raw, basically too. You know, while we were close to Galapagos, a lot of biofluorescence, really pretty sparks in the water and stuff. And then as we got further away, those kind of dissipated. It was really interesting to see birds all the way across.
For 2,000 miles?
For 2,000 miles, always
really?
birds. Yep, and they just sit there and bob around in the water, sit there, they'd fly off. For the first week, we'd have one night, the next morning we woke up, and then we had 20 flying fish on the deck.
You did?
A lot of flying fish. And then as we got closer and closer to Easter, none. But for a period, a lot of flying fish. I about got tagged by one. I was at night doing my night watch. There's the poles the stanchions that are sitting next to me. There's dong, and a big fish just flopping around.
Do you just say, sorry, big boy, and just put them in the freezer to eat?
No, the flying fish, tossed it back in. Most of them just ended up as just like breadsticks on the front. Most of them didn't live. Yeah. They're all dead. But yeah, that was kind of, so yeah, not a lot of life except for those few things. I mean, the nautical birds are amazing. They just will go forever. They spend their whole entire, I've heard an albatross will spend most of its life in the air, if not all of it, unless it comes back to mate and lay eggs or whatever. It'll sleep with using one half of its brain, then it'll turn that half of the brain that was on, turn it off and let it rest while it uses the other half of the brain to fly. And most of its life is spent airborne. So yeah, it's kind of crazy cool. But then the pelicans and things like that every now and then show up.
So not a ton of sperm whales. You're telling me about sperm whales.
Yeah. So we had some big sperm whales pop up a couple of days in. That was again kind of neat, kind of iconic because that's the Moby Dick area where in the heart of the sea. What was that one? The Endurance, I believe that boat was. The Endurance was out there when it got tagged by that big boat, sperm whale, and just sank it, and then that gave birth to Herman Melville's Moby Dick. So it's kind of cool to see those big old guys that may be a son or a extended, relative
was the one that
original Moby Dick.
Pinged him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of neat.
Tell me about the senses way out there in the open sea, the smells, the taste out there.
Everything was so wet. Everything was so wet, just constantly. You would literally watch the calluses on your hands just dissolve while you're out there. So everything's wet, kind of just mildewy. And so that's the one thing, busy jobs cleaning the boat a little bit, just spraying down some cleaning products and wiping down sections that have some mold growing. Then with the seasickness you had, everything was just blah. Even the wind across your skin made you feel queasy during that seasickness. So it was nice to actually have, I have a reputation for not wearing any clothes. when it's hot or period. But I was expecting, they told me to bring extra pairs of clothes. I'm like, do these people know me? I was so glad I did, because even though it's hot, you have that breeze coming across that water, and it's a cooler breeze. So in the sun, you're getting baked. It's like a brutal sun at the equator.
Yeah, you're equator.
Exactly.
Right.
But in the shade, you're like kind of shivering. You're cold. So yeah, it was really weird. Like your senses are going off the hook constantly, and then the smells and stuff too, like akin to maybe a woman, and that's pregnant. The smell's just making you queasy. Yeah, it's just like, what is going on with me right now? So yeah, the senses were a little bit nuts. The coolest thing, I read about it all the time, and I've heard about it, is when you get close to an island, you start smelling it. So I'm like sitting there on the edge of my seat because we could see the island pop out of the ocean about 36 miles away. Started seeing the volcano. So I'm like, okay, but it's evening. We know we're gonna make landfall and dark, and that's kind of was charming. As we get in, we don't know where the land is. We can't see it. Everything's black, but we know the island's there by our satellite and stuff like that. And so we get into a spot, and we're about 2 miles, about a mile and a half, and all of a sudden, just like this wave of campfire hits and earth, and it was just amazing. It was like, okay, that is everything. There's a lot of things that they said sailing would be that it's like, it's not as romantic as it sounds.
That one is.
This one is. The smell of earth and smoke and fire and like cooking, and you could smell it, and it was just because the wind was coming right off the island.
It seems like a distance for our human noses.
Yeah, it's impressive how much it carries, about a mile and a half. So I've heard it up to like 3 miles in the past or whatever. It was about 3-4 miles, but yeah, about a mile and a half is when it finally hit me, and I was like, that's cool. That's cool.
Then you're excited to drop anchor.
Yeah. So we got dropped anchor in the middle of the night, dark, didn't know what to expect. We just the satellite image. The next morning I wake up, and there's the big moai heads that everybody sees at Easter Island, the big heads, and I was like, it's here.
So you parked right outside the heads, huh?
Right there. Yeah. And then the Armada came and said, you guys have to leave. So yeah, but for a moment there, we actually started making pancakes. We're like, this is beautiful. The water's crystal clear. We're going to swim over and see the heads first person. And the Armada showed up. The Chile government came and said, okay, well, you guys need to go all the way to Hungaroa and check in. And that anchorage was not near as picturesque, but still beautiful.
Customs, you got to go do customs and all that.
They got to come and check us in. So yeah, we had to go do that. So we went over and Hungaroa. That was Akaina, I believe, is the name of the area we were at to start. So if you ever looked at Akaina, on there, Easter Island, that's where it's really beautiful, big heads and all that. But yeah, so we went around to there and weighed anchor, and then went on to land, and so nice. It's just always, we still had to wait all day basically because they didn't come until 3, so we went swimming and playing and
so they have snorkeling. Island time over there as well.
What's that?
Universal is island time.
Island time. Yeah, kind of. Exactly. So yeah, I got in there and went on, and yeah, it was awesome. Just went straight to land, and it happened. We got there. It's kind of like a sigh of relief.
Was it? You're like a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah,
we made it
for sure. And so we got there, and thing is, we only spent a little bit of time on land just to kind of like, okay, this is it. Let's go surf. So immediately went and got the surfboards, and we went off and surfed the rest of the afternoon. It was the most beautiful sunset, and those moments you just have to pinch yourself. It's like, wow. This is amazing. I got here. Not only did I people fly here all the time, but I sailed here from another iconic place, the Galapagos Islands, who says they've been to one of them, let alone both of them via a sailboat.
I know not many do that crossing. Yeah. You or Megan, how many log in?
Yeah, so they expect about 30 boats a year to Easter Island. Not very many.
Not very many.
Yeah, so most people go from like the Galapagos straight out the Marquesas and hit French Polynesia. Okay. It's 3,000 miles versus where we were going was 2,000 miles. Then we were going to go over to Pitcairn and then Gambier, and that would be another basically 1,300 miles, which would have been over the 3,000. But that would have been done in one stretch versus our multiple days. And Chris and I, and his family all agree. It's like, it's better to see more islands than just make it's better to make the journey than the destination, right?
Right. So they're good about that, making that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not the easiest sailing, again, because we were like getting beat up a little bit, sailing a little bit upwind. But I think it was just, again, it's like, you're here, do it. It's right there. Right. Just do it. So they were actually talking about, if we took a left, Antarctica's not very far from here. It's only 5,000 miles. It's like whatever. So let's go to sail to Antarctica.
So it sounds like you'll be getting a call from them.
I
They're
don't know.
going that way.
They may have had enough of my I told them, like, if you're going to Antarctica, I'll just go ahead and take me to the airport. I don't need to go 5,000 miles to go see snow. As cool as that sounds, I wanted to go to Pitcairn and Gambier, but again, with already being away from my family and work and everything for a month, that starts to sink in. Like, hey, you should be more responsible. I don't know if that's reality or not, but and then you decide, you know what, I want to see my family. Once your mind is made up, it's kind of like that's all I got.
To go.
So it's time to go. Yeah. So while we were on the island, though, we got to see some awesome stuff. The cathedral was something we scuba dove that they like to keep things close-lipped on the island. They don't want anybody knowing where things are at. They want you to go through a guide, which I get, because then you're not desecrating anything and whatnot. Like most of the island is a park, and in order to see anything in the park, you have to have a local guide.
Do you?
You're not allowed to go walk
Just
around.
Wander.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's similar with the scuba diving. What was really cool about, we ended up meeting one of the scuba diving companies because we were trying to get our hose fixed. Had a guy, Loti. He is actually the son of one of the crew members that dove with Jacques Cousteau. So he was a French Rapa Nui guy, really awesome dude, and just an awesome story. But his father came with Jacques Cousteau to dive in Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, and he fell in love with a Rapa Nui woman, and now this guy has his own scuba company or scuba diving charter. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, so we made good friends there on the island pretty quick. People are just so willing to help for the most part. In the Caribbean, Americans usually stick to the network. They get on every morning and they chat about anybody need anything, and they really kind of keep their village to just the sailing community. Whereas people who, especially in the Pacific, in the South Pacific, and the islands that we were at, nobody's out there but us. Like, you don't have a network. You have to immerse yourself in the community and start to ask, hey, do you know anybody who could help me with this, help me with that?
Right, because if only 30 of you are coming into the harbor, you have to use the locals.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah. So we got in and talked to the locals, and they were able to give us a little bit of information on where this cathedral was. So we went out with the boat, and Lorenzo, his ears weren't working for him, so he kept on the boat. We weren't allowed to anchor, so he just dropped us all off. And I had little Enoch, 7-year-old Enoch, wrapped up in my arms on my secondary. And not exactly the smartest thing to do, but this is the family. Like, we're doing it.
This
is what we do. Well, they're like, you feel okay with doing this? I'm like, I guess so. You feel okay with it,
How deep did you go?
We were about 60 maybe. It wasn't super deep, but the fact is, though, like, in order to go in caves, you need to be adventure certified. Even this is beyond like your PADI open water. This is adventure. We're going into the cathedral, which is this series of tunnels and stuff.
Limestone?
All basalt, all lava.
Basalt. Okay.
These are basically old lava tubes. Lava tubes that we're going through. So the cathedral is what it's called, and it was just, so we knew the vicinity. They're like, see those big rocks out there? Somewhere out there. We're like, all right, cool. So we dropped in. It didn't take us too long before we went down in, and I had Enoch, wrapped up in my arms, and he was breathing off the secondary. He had his signals down, like his okay, and all this stuff. And so we get down to the bottom, we see the opening, and we start cruising through this little hole. We're like, oh, that's cute. And then we take like a left-hand turn. It's just massive room, just beautiful. Everything's glowing blue. There's like the one girl, Eliza, she's I think she's 12. She's doing like she's on a secondary as well, and she's swimming by herself like off the secondary. She's doing flips and stuff like that. And
like,
they got the
take
GoPro.
A breath,
yeah, exactly. She's like a mermaid chick. She's just getting after it. It was awesome.
Wow.
Again, they feel so comfortable. For me, being a little more conservative, I'm like daringly comfortable with this. But anyway, so we start cruising around, and Enoch wants to go into his brother's octo. So I take he takes it out of his mouth, he grabs his brother's octo and goes to put it in his mouth, and it's not working. I think he had it in upside down, but he panics, and we're 60 feet underwater in a cave, and he starts to swim away.
Where was he going?
Exactly. Where was he going?
No. Oh no.
So I just grab him out of the my left hand, and grab him, yank him down, and pull my octo out of my mouth and a regulator and put it in his mouth, and until I can find the other, just make sure. So I do the sweep, they call it sweep, and grab it and put him out. So we get it all situated. I'm like, okay. I'm like, are you okay? And he just looks straight at me. I'm like, is this kid dead? Like, he's just looking at me, giving me the sign. He gave me the sign. Please give me the sign. So, so that was
the guide here on all this.
That's that.
Was the guide
no? Like
this?
I said, this family doesn't believe in guides. That's what was so abrasive to them, is to come to an island where you have to have guides. So he's just he would not have. There's been no way he'd even let that happen, kind of a thing. Yeah. So that's why they do it. So on their own.
The guide let you take some 7-year-old on a secondary? I mean,
he could clear his, he could keep his ears popped, and maybe I shouldn't divulge that information. They're going to be seeked down by child services. I don't know. No, they're very, very cautious. They've taught them very well and what to do and things.
That's why you
amazing.
do it, because they can handle it. So what is was it blue? The blue on the walls? That blue bio?
No, the biofluorescence. No, it was just blue because, again, there's not a lot of life in the water down there on Easter, which allows for the clarity. It was just blue because of the hint of the sun coming through the water. You could see these big openings, and it just, like I said, it was dreamy. I think you can find videos of it on the internet and stuff on YouTube. But the cathedral, really cool, amazing. Like I can't wait to get because I had a GoPro with them. So
So you have footage in there.
And then Chris, he didn't get to go through the small tunnel that me and Solomon, the 14-year-old boy, went through. So he's big into free diving. So he did it all on one breath. Just took the scuba gear off, and went down through the tunnel on a GoPro. So his footage is going to be really good. Yeah, like I said, this dude, he really made me question my masculinity. And very few people can do that for me, but he does.
Your masculinity or insanity?
Insanity, maybe that's what it is, the brave or stupid kind of a thing.
Yeah, maybe we're getting mixed up. But
yeah, so... Yeah. So, I mean, and then from that point, the winds were changing, so we had to go to the other side of the island. So with the boat, I went in, we got a rental van, which was awesome. It's just those moments where I'm driving an old Japanese van down tiny little roads on Rapa Nui, Easter Island, and there's these heads along the way. It was amazing. And so I drove over to I can't remember what the name of the anchorage is that we hit, but every anchorage had the moai heads up on the hill. So it was really close to the where they quarried them too. So once we got there, I found a German couple that had a boat they pulled in too. So we had two boats now. They had a monohull, really cool, Hako and Nora, and they had been on the water for 5 years, putting around everywhere. So awesome couple. And they had a dinghy. Our dinghy at this point took a crud on us, and that was fun trying to find parts for stuff. Honda. Apparently, nobody in the Southern Hemisphere believes in Honda. It's a Northern Hemisphere thing. It's just things you just don't even know you don't know.
So what did you need down there?
We needed an ignition coil in order for the firing of the spark plug. It needs to go from a 12 volt up to the whatever. So it's usually upstages it from say 12 volts to 120 volts in order to jump a gap, which ignites the fuel, propels the dinghy. So we didn't have a dinghy.
How does the island even get their supplies?
They have a big boat comes in every 2 weeks. Akahanga was our guide, the guy we found. He was a Rapa Nui guy. Super. Just love the dude. They every 2 weeks they have a boat come in with things. So getting it like Amazon Prime doesn't fly.
Do you just have to wait for those 2 weeks?
We're so handicapped in our world, how easily accessible everything is. It's unreal. It makes you just go into a fit of panic. I have to wait 3 days. What am I going to do? And you have a window. But the beautiful thing is there was this amazing festival. It's happening, just finishing up, I think, this weekend. It happens once a year on Rapa Nui, and it's just beautiful. Everything's for free. They just all of the food that they've grown and stuff. Everybody's having barbecues, the dancing, the entertainment. The whole island comes together in this massive festival for a week. And so they're like, well, if we had to stick around for a place, we may as well stick around here. So the great thing about this family too is they have a lot of friends and family that come out and visit them. So they're gonna just do without until they get to Gambier, which they have another friend coming out in Gambier, and they'll bring a Honda ignition coil.
So it's almost easier to send someone down,
pretty much. To find a part. It's literally easier to fly someone with the part from the U.S.
as you were made to do.
Exactly. I'm a mule for some parts.
Interesting.
So but figuring that out is good. I mean, it's a good exercise to figure out how you can navigate that environment without having the same language and all that. It was exciting to me. I was on my own because they went and moved the boat while I was taking the car. So I was finding I need a 16 millimeter sock. I'm using a translator with this guy, and this guy hates me because I cut him off, but I don't know what the heck I'm doing on their streets. And so it was good. That when I'm in my own element, I'm definitely like I always say, I'm very introverted. So if I'm by myself, I think so clear. But if I have a bunch of people with me, I'm trying to think for all of them too, and it's tough for me. It's tough for me. So this was nice. Just had to have some time for myself and went around, ran some errands, got some currency exchanged. I was ready to go, feeling more confident in myself. A little bit of a win for the day. Okay. But yeah. Yeah.
So on island you were touring, scuba diving,
Yeah.
surfing, meeting locals, and fixing things.
Yeah,
Is
and
that
then
kind of
the German couple, they were awesome because they had the dinghy, so they got us in, and we took them in our nice little 10-passenger van. That we would go pick up our hiking or our guide, pick him up, and then we'd spend the whole day just going around the island for like 3 days straight.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did he make all the recommendations? Or you knew where you guys wanted to go, or he knew?
No, we just left it all up to him. We're like, you just tell us where to go. So we picked them up, and like I said, we kind of transferred. They would pull us in with their dinghy because we had an army of children, right? So we had to use 2 days. They'd pull us in and then tug us back out, and back and forth, and then we'd take them around in the van, help them get groceries and all that. So it's just awesome. Like these like organic relationships that arise out of like a mutual need for something, not necessarily a necessity, but like a desire to go do something, and it kind of it's just really cool. I like that part of it for sure. And I won't go into huge detail as far as like all of the amazing lore of Easter Island as far as the Maui. The one thing is that I found the most interesting probably is the fact that the ones that are re-erected. The Moai were all pushed over by the people who live there, the Rapa Nui people, because they lost faith. They were supposed to be a symbol of their ancestors, a headstone basically that would protect them, and that's why they all looked towards the clans and never out at the ocean. They all looked inland.
The heads did.
Mm-hmm. And
they set them back up facing the ocean now, right?
No, they're still they're facing the original direction they were, with the exception of one called the Traveling Moai, which actually was taken by the Japanese philanthropist who re-erected them in the 70s, 80s. He took one of them and traveled it all around the world, and they put it back. And Akahanga was saying that they actually put it back wrong. It was supposed to be facing a little bit different direction because there's two opposing Moai that are the only Moai that are not facing towards the people. They're facing towards each other, and they're opposite ends of the island.
Oh, so, warriors staring each other down.
Yeah,
type.
I don't know. There's a lot of bloodshed, even bloodshed to the point of cannibalism on that island because there just wasn't any natural resources really. I mean, there's a lot of misinterpreted ideologies about the people on the island and stuff like, and what the Moai, and they burned everything to build these big huge heads when really there wasn't anything to burn to begin with. It was just a volcanic island with nothing on it. Like they didn't really have much. But then when the little wood they did have that they brought over with trees, planted banana trees and stuff and other woods, they would use to cremate their ancestors and then put them in an aku, which is a tomb underneath where they would bring the heads up.
Where they brought the heads up.
Yeah. And then those bones, they would actually, Akahanga was saying that they would devour parts of the body too to take their power on. If a person had good mana, good luck, they would be, remembered with the Moai and stuff, and that mana would then be presented to would basically flow onto the people via the eyes. So they would bring them up and they would put eyes onto the Moai, and that the eyes would project that mana on the people. And when the Spanish came and everybody started dying of sicknesses and things like that, the people lost faith, and so they pushed them over. They lost faith in their ancestors. So. Yeah.
Is it like almost everything in society, only the rich and high in society had a head?
Yeah, kind of. They actually have at the bottom of the Moai, they have people say, they have a whole body, it's all buried. Kind of. It's a whole body, but it kind of ends at the hips, and you make believe about the feet. Like there's not much going on there. They're all head and then a little bit of a torso. And at the bottom of the torso, the hands are always like placed kind of facing each other in, and they have long nails. And the long nails is because they didn't work.
Oh, yeah.
So they are prestigious. Yeah, exactly.
So all of them had that.
Right. And again, it's like if they had good luck and stuff. The island, they had 12 clans, and they were always at odds. But the cool thing is they had kind of a Super Bowl every year to decide who was going to be the leader of the island for the next year. And so they would have the Birdman competitions, and that's what this festival is kind of in remembrance of, is the Birdman Festival. Yeah, that's a really cool story too. But yeah, I won't try to butcher it with my understanding of what I tried to glean, but it's amazing. Like I said, super rich culture, but it's also sad because they don't have a written history. It's all a verbal history. Those who knew how to read and write were packaged up and shipped to the continent, taken away from the people. So everybody that was there didn't know how to write down their history, so it's all been passed down. And I think some of the things might be exaggerated as people do, and maybe some things are just forgotten altogether.
Right. Touch a little bit on the river, the water of life, the top of the mountain.
Oh yeah, so that's awesome. Amazing. So at the very top where they actually do the Birdman competition, where the guys they climb down a 3,000-foot cliff, swim a half mile out to an island, find a little egg, bring that egg back across the water, climb up that 3,000-foot cliff, all while trying to kill or not be killed by the other 11 clans that are out there. Yeah.
Because one from each clan could represent.
Right. So, yeah. And then when he got back, the guy who won would be put in a hut for that entire year, and no one was allowed to see them because he was a manifestation of the deity. And if someone saw him, he would be put to death. So I don't know if I'd want to win, but I know that's not it's their own thing. So at the top of that, there's a big pool at the top of this volcano, and at the bottom of that, in this caldera, the volcano, there is like every fruit tree you could ever imagine down there that the people brought with them when they came from the Polynesian islands, and it was meant to like basically extend life. This water that's at the bottom. Jacques Cousteau went down there, and it's like about 10 meters deep, and it's really interesting looking. It's a bunch of little tiny land islands and stuff like that in it. It's all not really land. It's more of just a growth of foliage or flora. It's all just kind of swampy in there, but the water, I guess, there's a bacteria in it that is actually proven to extend life, and also is used in in anybody who has like an organ transplant. That bacteria is used to keep the body from attacking that organ.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, there's like natural healing properties of this water. It's like a fountain of youth kind of a deal. That is kind of neat. So
if people were to Google it, what do you Google? On this island,
everything's
so hush hush, like you said, probably. Yeah, because I've never heard of this. I've obviously seen the heads, but I've never heard of the
It's just their main. Yeah, man, I can't. My mind doesn't. There was a lot to digest as far as what I was learning, and the names half the time not being able to even pronounce them. So, but yeah, if you just look up like the Easter Island or Rapa Nui volcano caldera, I'm sure you could find it, something along those lines. Okay. But you might even see.
Good luck, Manny.
Yeah, this one might be tough, but
Manny's good at this stuff.
Yeah, there's like 3 volcanoes on the island, and so it's that one. It's the right there too. That's the one. Yeah, so isn't that stunning? That's
that's where you were.
Yeah, that's where I was. Where it starts to, there's the big flat area, kind of right at the center front of the caldera, right in this section here. Okay, those are all huts. Those huts is where the warriors of the guys would hang out and watch for this bird. This bird, it only came once a year, and so it didn't exist on the island. It only came to this one little island that's about a half mile out. You can't see it in this picture. It's a half mile out. It would come and it would land, and this is like a tiny little egg, right? And a tiny little bird, like 10 meters long, I guess. 10 like, no, what was that? That's meters. It's like 30-foot long bird. But like, it was a small bird, and these guys would watch from up there. And when they saw the bird, they would clamber down that cliff and swim across there to get this bird's egg. But this bird was another manifestation of their deity that was coming to them once a year, would come to the people. And so this was for the Birdman competitions. But so that there and that flat is where they all kind of would hang out and wait for this bird to show itself. There were some people that actually still do this just to. I think I probably would too if I grew up in the culture. I would try this. You'd
have to, right? It's probably like a rite of passage.
I say that, but now I'm questioning all my
your insanity versus masculinity.
Bingo. But yeah, so this island. Wow, that's a really cool picture because I can point out all the different anchorages we stopped.
Yeah. So show us what's so is this town on this?
Over here is Hangaroa.
Okay.
Over there, and over here, that's the airport strip across there. I don't know if this is bad for my hearing. Yeah. And then all the way to the far, far back corner is like all the way to the upper right. Yeah, way back there. That's where our second anchorage was, where we first had to go in the Hangaroa, and then we went around and talk. And it's just really cool to sail around this island too, to circumnavigate this island. So we came around this caldera. They did while I drove the van across, and on that back area is where we hung out, and then would drive that. And it's basically, I've never been to Ireland or Scotland, but it's very, I would say, akin to the pictures I've seen. Extremely green and lush with lava rocks everywhere. I can't imagine moving these ginormous stones over this all of this like lava rock and crud. It was
you're right. It has like a Scotland look to it.
As far, like I said, not that I've been there, but it was and then like it was all sunny for the first few days, and the last few days it was all foggy and misty and rainy. So it was really and then there were like cows everywhere too. Very, very rural. But yeah, that's that caldera there. It's sacred, so you're not allowed. Nobody's allowed to go down into it now, except I'm sure some locals and stuff like that have permission. But yeah, they used to be that's basically where they derive a lot of their drinking water and stuff back in the day. Now they've got other systems in play. But yeah, I mean, all the foliage you're seeing, all those trees, that it was void of those. Those were all brought in. They brought in a lot of to help with like wind going across the plains and stuff like that, and a little bit of protection for their fields and crops. They brought in a lot of the what are the trees in Hawaii?
Like the noni or something.
No, they're like the big. They kind of have like a purple bark to them. Purple. Oh crud! I'm escaping me now. But
Purple bark.
yeah, like it's kind of a shaggy bark, kind of peels off. Really, not hibiscus trees, but it starts with an E. Anyway, yeah. So
the eucalyptus.
Yes, okay. Eucalyptus trees. Okay. Yeah. So they brought in a lot of that, but yeah, most of that was just barren. Even in the 80s, my buddy or Akahunga was showing us pictures that it was just desolate. There were these moai across the hillside. And there's trees all around. He's like, no, look at this picture from the 80s. Just desolate. Really, really nothing going on there. But
do they like people visiting?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of one of their mains. I think
probably the only income.
Yeah, kind of the income is that everybody's just like I said, kind of just on island time, just doing their thing, and then everybody's prepping for the big festival. It's once a year. That's pretty cool. Everybody's just surfing and hanging out, but. Yeah.
So you got surfing there and snorkeling.
Yeah.
And scuba diving.
The surf swells are pretty good over there. There's one wave specifically that's pretty world renowned. A lot of pictures of it and stuff. But there's quite a few different waves that are big enough to barrel and tube. So yeah. It's neat. It's gorgeous. And yeah, honestly, like on the island, it was neat. There's a couple, out of the 98% of the people were totally cool, cavalier, wonderful people. Then you had the 2% that I happened to meet that weren't necessarily, but we don't have to go into that. There you have a few bad eggs in every batch, but for the most part, extremely wonderful. Akahunga, he's like, don't leave the island. If you need a place to stay for the festival, just come to my house. If you want, you can just set up a tent on my field. And his field literally had petroglyphs and caves from the indigenous people and everything. And he's like, just come stay with us. And then I in leaving, he's like, don't leave. I'm going to come to the airport. And so he came to the airport. He gave me a necklace, and he brought his mother with him too. It was just amazing. Absolutely, like fell in love. Someday, when I'm bored in the winter, I'll take my family and we'll take off, go to Hungaranga. Yeah, exactly. Fly in and go to the festival there and stay with Akahunga and his family. It'd be awesome because his grandmother does a ton of farming on the island and everything too. So it's like it's my alley.
Yeah, because they would have to, I would assume, grow most all their food, all their cows.
Oh yeah, the pineapple were awesome. They have these miniature pineapples. That is the sweetest thing. Most fruit is like kind of bitter to the middle. These like get sweeter as you get into them. So they take these little short pineapples and you shave off all of like the leaves that are up top, and you turn it into kind of a cone of the leaves, and all the pokey parts are gone. And you hold onto that as the handle, and you take your knife and shave off all the outside of the pineapple, and you just eat it like a lamb or a leg of or a turkey leg kind of a thing. Yeah, it's delicious. So a lot of really good fresh produce on the island for sure. Yeah. A lot of farming, a lot of beef out there, a lot of cows. So yeah.
Do they have a known religion, that island out there?
Catholicism's a big one because it was the Spanish influence that came. It's the Spain, and technically, it's Easter Island is owned by Chile. So okay. Yeah. So there's Catholicism's kind of the main hustle religion. For sure. Yeah.
I'm glancing through Megan's questions.
Yeah.
All right. So kind of some wrap-up questions from Megan. Would you do the trip again?
That's tough. It's like, how you get to that point where I've already been there. Why do it again? Would I sail there again? The ocean doesn't really change features a whole lot. I don't think I'd want to sail there again. Mm-hmm. Would I if other people were doing it? Yeah, maybe. I jump on. Yeah, sure. Do a crossing. It wasn't that long. But I would love to go back to the island. There's so many places in the world to go to. Would I want to go back to this island? Yeah, it's cool. And I'd love for my family to experience it. The main reason if I were to do it again would be to continue over to Pitcairn. Pitcairn you can't get to except for sailboat. They only have they have like a population of like 50 people.
Over there in the French Polynesia.
Well, in Pitcairn, yeah,
right?
Because Pitcairn was established by the mutineers from the Bounty. So they mutinied on the Bounty, the ship the Bounty, and sent their captain Bligh off on basically a death barge. He just sent them off with his guys, and they went back to the islands in French Polynesia and got the women that they had grown to love and even had kids with at that point, and took off with the bounty ship over to Pitcairn to hide, because they knew anybody that mutinies is going to be tracked down by the British government and killed and hung. So they tried to hide on that island, and so all of the people that are on the island are descendants from those originals. So they have an interesting combination of Polynesian and Old English.
Oh,
so I wanted so bad just to go and see this. Now, island I hear is beautiful too. The German couple, what was really cool about communicating with them is they were coming from Gambier, Pitcairn over to Easter, and we were going to be on the other direction. So they had some good insight too about Pitcairn. Like, the anchorage is a little further off. We didn't have a dinghy anymore. But it didn't matter, because even with the dinghy, it's too dangerous with so many rocks at Pitcairn to get into the little marina that you have to hire a boat to come out and get you anyway.
Oh, interesting.
And so that was good insight. But and then the Gambier, it's they just said they're probably the prettiest islands they've ever been to, and they've been over French Polynesia. So so there's still more islands to hit.
The world's just too big.
Yeah,
in
some
know
ways,
what you mean. It's just too big. You just have to pick.
Yeah.
Keep going. So. All right. And then Megan's, some life lessons you want to share after a trip like this?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe just the biggest thing, again, is my narrating. It always goes to a negative place, like narrating the situation. And I find that we suffer, and this quote's probably beaten to death, but we suffer more from imagination than we do reality. And my big thing is I just gotta, in life, don't sit there and notate that this is a bad situation. Just assess the facts. Leave emotion, leave opinion out of them. This is the situation. What do I got to do next? And so, it's stop narrating. Just do what needs to be done in that moment. And even when I was panicking and narrating it, because it really wasn't, oh, the ship's going over, or we're done for. All I did is walk up onto the deck, and there's Solomon, or no, it'd been Lorenzo on that watch. He's just sitting there watching a movie, because everything's just fine. Yeah. Everything was just fine. It's just in your head. You're freaking out. So keep that narrative to a minimal, only what's necessary. And surrender a lot of expectations. That's for sure. Yeah. So don't know, but the opportunity arose. It was a situation where their family, the wife, her father is a good friend of mine here in St. George. And that family actually stayed in our Airbnb for a week. And we we didn't ever even see them in passing or anything. It was they were there, then they were gone, and so they were more than welcome to have me. Or they made me feel more than welcome to come out and spend that time with them. And that's kind of the way they live their life out there on the boat too. Is to me, I'm I need structure, I need regiment. They're just whatever, and they always make it through. Always. And not only that, they make amazing friends along the way. When they got to Easter Island, they went to a non-denominational church there, and everybody was just we're having a barbecue for you Thursday. Everybody in the ward, or the church, or in the congregation, we're all making a big old barbecue in your favor, and we'll cut all your guys' hair. So I just got a picture of Lorenzo, who's this surfer dude look, 16-year-old. He's all cleaned up nice now, and he's it's shorter than I wanted, but they just want to take care of you. They just want to take because and another thing too that Chris is trying to do with him being a dental surgeon is he's going to places and seeing where he can help with
that's true. A lot of humanitarian projects he took involved in.
And a lot of places don't need it because it's in the Caribbean. They for some whatever reason but out in the French Polynesians where things are a little more remote,
it's harder.
They may be a little more open, or maybe need it a little more. He's starting to go out doing that. So
that's good. So now that you've been home a little bit, are you craving anything to go back to out there?
No.
That month's trip? Nothing that just keeps replaying in your mind that you're wish I could go back.
No, I feel like things like this give me more momentum in our structure and our society to better myself, my family, my living situation so that I can do more of that. Right. So I'm not craving any of that because I know it's out there and it'll always be out there, that horizon. I crave right now to get down to work and make something happen so that I can get my family out there too. Yeah. This situation, I didn't even know what to expect. To take my family out there I just didn't feel comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. Looking back, could I have done that with the family? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But now I know that. But I also know that I need to do it on my own terms.
Do
So
you?
I want to, like I said, work hard, figure out a system or a method that I can maybe look forward into the future and do some bare bone rentals on boats maybe in the, back over to the Caribbean and get a little more
Shorter sails in.
Yeah. And just
So
with
is
the
a
family.
boat in the future? Is that where you?
I don't know.
It's
Definitely I'm not gonna go out and buy one. That's for sure.
No.
It's much better it's better to know somebody with a boat than have a boat for sure. So I'm going to probably do some chartering, some rentals and stuff. And then if I really just fall in love with it, my family does too, then we look at it. And even then buying boats and selling boats, like even then what they're doing with this catamaran is boats sell for more out in Australia. So they're going to go all the way to Australia and they'd have amazing adventures all the way through and then they'll just sell the boat.
Over there when they get there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a pretty common thing. So I don't know, maybe if I did the run again, I'd probably go start with Galapagos. If I went that far south, otherwise I'd just start up in like LA, head out to Hawaii, and then French Polynesia, the Marquises and stuff like that. And then maybe do the same thing, sell the boat or keep around. It'd be amazing to go to Indonesia and everything, but it's not on their radar for right now. They're in a 5-year plan, and they're almost done with that 5 years.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the one memory you don't want to forget? When you're 90 years old, what do you not want to forget about this trip?
Oh man, I can tell you I know the one I want to forget.
Tell me both then. Tell me
Okay,
the one.
well, the one I want to forget
Yep.
is a situation. One of the two people on the island I didn't see eye to eye with is we were there and they were preparing for their festival, and we're sitting there and there's a bunch of different people on one side of the area and had their phones out recording it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to see them doing the dances that I'm not going to be able to see because I'm not going to be here for the festival. And so I'm doing that. I'm sitting there and recording, and then I stop recording, and then they stop everything and they say something in Spanish, and my Spanish is non-existent. And so I don't think anything of it. Well, then they start to know the dance, start dancing. So I bring and this is more of it's very Polynesian. They have like the skirts and stuff like that. They're getting ready for it. Yeah, exactly. So I get my phone. I was like, oh, that's a cool part. So I start recording, and I put my phone down again. All of a sudden, this Polynesian guy decides he's wants to get in my face about it and speaking in Spanish. So I was like, lo siento, no español, and that immediately black marks me as a gringo as I'll get out. And he's like, I told you not to record. You hear me now? And I'm like, well, yeah, I do.
I do.
Because you're speaking English. You see how that works? Kind of a situation. But I'm just like,
did you say that to him?
No, I was like, no.
He's mad
I'm like,
at you.
well, that's the thing is you get in a fight with one Polynesian, you get in a fight with a lot of Polynesians.
The whole family. You're the whole island.
And it just seems like a lot of people, not only like it's kind of, I mean, not to blackball the Rapa Nui people or Polynesian, but like it's like they are the most loving people that I've noticed. Like give you a shirt on the back, but if the minute something goes sideways, you can be enemies just like that. Mm-hmm. It's that volatility is kind of a sketchy situation. So I'm just like, okay, yeah, like no problem. I just didn't understand what you said in Spanish. And he's like, now you're listening. And like that just great. Cause I'm a non-confrontational person until there needs to be confrontation. Then I go, yeah, I'm heated. And that just really bummed me out about the culture. So so instead of ending on that sour note, I can end on the positive note of Akahunga, like I said, coming and just the love that I felt from his mother and like the hug that she gave me, like that's probably the best. I mean, yes, sailing and everything, but the love of this woman and the smile on her face and everything like that, it definitely made up for all of the other things.
So did she travel with you some days?
Akahunga?
The mom.
Oh no, not at all.
You had never met the mom?
Just loved me. Didn't
you?
matter. She just loved me. So, good. And I mean, being a guide as myself, I'm a guide, and then Akahunga, we really talked a ton about just the different ways that we conduct ourselves while guiding and stuff like that. It was really cool. Have a kindred spirit with that from a whole different world, but we vibed really well. So
that's good.
So either her, and then also the empanadas. So that was the other thing too that I always remember. They have a barbecue chicken, bacon, and candied onion empanada for like $5 at this little like food truck. I'll carry with me forever too.
How many did you throw up of those?
I didn't throw any of those up. At this point, like I said, once you get past your 3 days, then it didn't matter what hit me. I could eat anything I wanted and everything was good. But no, those were awesome. And so yeah, it was awesome. Just an experience where you can say that you did that, and it's just like, a lot of people I hear the quote, why do we do stupid things? And so that we can tell people about them. It's pretty much, but no, it was wonderful. So
that's awesome.
It's good.